This month has been a little crazy for me, going through finals for the second to last time and also going through a number of health scares. Just quirky things that make life as a student in a global pandemic super fun. But now that the holidays are over and I'm getting back to a more consistent posting schedule, I wanted to make a vlog chronicling all of the things that I've been up to for the past couple months, writing-wise, and tell you guys all the things that I learned. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about in this video in no particular order are what it's like to change your narrative structure and rewrite an entire book, how it's been trying to work on multiple projects at once, how to find an editor and how to know what editor works for you, what the cover design process as an indie author is like, and also a bit of a discussion on editing and perfectionism and how you know when to stop editing, because I struggle with that. I'm also home for the holidays, so I'm doing this video in my childhood bedroom in front of my lovely bookshelf filled with young adult books. It's not a perfect system. I have a lot of books around just in random stacks everywhere because I will pick them up and forget to put them back on the shelf. But I miss my bookshelf, and it makes me very happy to be back. So the first thing I want to talk about in this video is an update on my thesis. So for those of you who are new to my channel, I'm currently working on a creative writing thesis for my undergraduate program, and that thesis is happening in the form of a young adult contemporary novel. The novel follows a 16-year-old girl who, in the face of a giant tragedy that splits up her family, has to put her family back together over the course of a summer. She makes a series of really bad decisions that end up making her family fracture. She feels really guilty, she has to come of age. And it's kind of the adventures that she goes on in order to do that. I love this story. I've been working on this story now since I was about 15. As you can probably ascertain, this book has been written many times in many different ways. Because I've been working on this story for so long, I love it to death. I've lived with these characters in my head for such a long time. I know them all so well. I know exactly what their character arcs have to be. I know what they sound like. I can hear their voices in my head when I'm writing. It's a very comfortable story for me, and I really enjoy writing it, but when I turned it in to my thesis advisor at the beginning of the semester, she pretty much told me right off the bat that there was something not quite right with the character voice. We talked about it and we brainstormed and we tried to figure out what it was. What it ended up being was the fact that my main character was a little too stuck in her head, and because she was telling the story retrospectively, she was able to cast her judgment on things that were happening, and the story felt a little bit too much like I was telling it instead of showing it. Telling instead of showing can be really good in some instances, but in an entire narrative structure, and in the story that I was trying to tell, it didn't work so well. So around the beginning of October, we made the decision that I needed to rewrite the entire novel from first person present. And instead of having the book be told half in flashbacks and half in regular time, I was going to write the entire thing chronologically. The story just started clicking together faster than it ever had before, and in a way that just felt very authentic. So I'm super happy about this. I'm really, really happy about this. I just have so much to do because I have to finish the entire book before I go back to school. But I ended up learning a lot from this because I learned that not every single story can just be told in the way that you want to tell it. You need to be able to figure out what voice and what narrative structure fits best specifically for your story, not just the one that you feel most comfortable writing. Like, it's the writer's job to grab the reader's hand and pull them through the story in a way that allows the reader to experience it along with the characters. So often, this is better accomplished when you show them things instead of tell them things, which is why my first narrative structure was not working. So my update there is essentially that I'm just working really hard on it every single day and hoping that I can get it done. Now here's where it gets really exciting. I have tons of updates about my ghost book. I'm also working on the first book of a young adult supernatural thriller series, which is almost done. I wrote 3 drafts, I sent it to my editor read it, she gave me her editorial notes, and now I'm working on incorporating those and adding a couple of last minute changes that I have thought of over this month. I went back and I made sure that the book fit into the hero's journey. I'm also cleaning up all of the prose by running it through a program called Pro Writing Aid. I learned about it a couple of weeks ago, and it absolutely blew my mind. It's essentially Grammarly, but it also critiques you for style. It tells you when you're telling and not showing. It tells you when you're overusing words and phrases. It also enhances your readability, so if you wrote a sentence that makes sense but it's a little clunky and your readers might stick on it, then it goes back and tells you that so you can clean it up. It's really awesome. I've been running all of my chapters through there, and that's been very helpful because I felt like the book is getting cleaner and easier to read. I also found an editor this fall, which was very exciting. Because this is my second book, I decided to hire a developmental editor to go through it with me and to help me figure out how I could make it better. She has been incredibly helpful, and she is awesome. I've heard a lot of stories about hiring freelance editors because some are really great and some are not so much. But I'm so glad that I am working with her because she is incredible and she's giving me really awesome feedback and I can feel the book getting better. It's also helping my confidence. Like, you know, when you share your book with someone else and they really like it, then you start to feel better about yourself because it's not just in your head anymore. You get that external validation from someone who reads a lot of young adult and really knows what she's talking about, and that feels pretty good. When you work with a developmental editor, you send them your manuscript, they read your manuscript, they leave you comments inside your manuscript and also write you an editorial letter, essentially giving you all of the big picture feedback and things that they would suggest that you change. This takes different amounts of time depending on who you're working with. My editor read my book and had it back to me in 3 weeks. If you're thinking about hiring a developmental editor, I would, especially if it's one of your first books. I think after a while you start to get the hang of it and you might not need the help of a developmental editor, but at the beginning, especially in the first book of a series when you're doing a lot of world building, it can be helpful. Now I'm at the stage where I'm trying to figure out exactly what my next stage of editing is going to look like. Because I'm going through the manuscript with a fine-tooth comb using Pro Writing Aid, I don't know if I'm going to hire a line editor. I might just skip to proofreading. I think it's going to depend on feedback that I get from beta readers, whether or not the prose is clean. I'm also hiring a cover designer to design the book's cover. I can't wait to see what they come up with. I'm really excited to do a full cover reveal once I decide on the cover and everything is finalized, but it's going to be spooky. I figured out that the best way to describe this book is that it's a cross between the TV series Stranger Things and Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. In the video I made back in September called my September writing update, I went on a really big long rant about how I hated titling stuff and how I had no idea what I was going to call this book, but now I do. The title is They Stay. The book is called They Stay. It's the first book in a series, and I have linked in the description the official synopsis of the book if you want to go read it. I'm so excited about it. Things are really coming together for its launch in July of this year. Something that I've really been struggling with, especially this month, is trying to figure out how I can balance working on 2 projects at once. I mean, this has been an issue all semester, but I haven't been working on both projects really at the same time. I'll go back and forth, like I'll work a couple of weeks on one project and then I'll go and I'll work a couple of weeks intensely on another project. I find that the books come along faster when I'm focusing all my time and energy on just one of them, but now I'm in a position where both books need to be done by the end of January. I feel like my brain is being pulled in 2 different directions. It helps that the books are different, but I just don't feel like I'm progressing fast enough. I don't know. Are you guys able to work on multiple books at once? If you do, please tell me how you do it. Write a comment and share your secrets, because your girl wants to know. My strategy has just been to sit in front of the computer for hours and hours on end. Except for today, because I went to the eye doctor and they dilated my eyes, so I couldn't stare at the screen for a while. They're finally back to normal, which is why I'm able to film this video, and also why this video is being filmed later than it usually is. I think I'm gonna cut that out. No one needs to know that. I'm also now a member of the Alliance of Independent Authors and the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators, Ally, and SCBWI. That's been very exciting. I've also been reading all of their free books that they give you when you become a member. I'm trying to connect with some people in SCBWI. I've applied to join a critique group, but we'll see whether that works out. I've been going to some Monday mingles in my regional chapter of SCBWI, which have been fun. Being a writer can feel kind of isolating, so it's fun to be able to connect with other people who are doing the same thing that you are. And this video would not be a update video if it did not include some sort of rant. And the rant that I'm going to be giving you in this video has to do with the book Right to Market by Chris Fox. This is not a rant against this book. I actually think it's a very good book and that Chris Fox really knows what he's doing. I'm just banging my head against the wall because I'm trying to figure out how I can make the books that I write and want to write fit into the market. You want to understand who you're writing for so that people will want to read your book and buy it. I'm just having issues with this because I am trying to figure out how right to market applies to young adult fiction. Because as I'm doing research on Amazon, it seems that the young adult genre operates a little bit differently and has a slightly different readership than most adult genre fiction genres. Please correct me if I'm wrong about this because I'm still trying to learn about this, and if you know a lot about it, I would love to listen. But from what I've heard, a lot of young adult books are made in print sales compared to people who buy ebooks, which are usually people who own Kindles, and not as many young adults have Kindles. I don't know if that's the reason, I just know that print sales are higher with young adult. I've also heard that a significant number of people who read young adult are adults themselves. This, I believe, is fully true because this was my experience when I published my book in high school, but it's making it complicated for me to try to wrap my brain around exactly who my target audience is because it doesn't fit neatly into one of these genres, if that makes any sense. One thing that Chris Fox mentions in Right to Market is that you have to decide what kind of fiction you want to write, and you need to brand yourself as an author, as a writer of that type of fiction. A lot of successful authors seem to write in one particular genre and then use pen names when they want to break out of that genre. But I don't know that I'm ready to latch myself onto one genre quite yet. I have this thriller series that's going to come out, and then I have a young adult contemporary that's going to come out, and then I also want to write a sci-fi series. I want to be able to explore these different genres and write these stories that I want to tell, but I also need to be able to make money. So that's one of my questions for you guys. To all of my self-published authors out there, have you all decided to write in one particular genre, or do you write in multiple genres? And if you write in multiple genres, do you have a bunch of different pen names? Let me know, because I've been thinking a lot about it and I want to know. Also, on the topic of pen names, I've also been reading about publishing and sexism, which is something that I knew about, but I had not really fully confronted in what that would mean for establishing my author business. Apparently, this sexism is especially prevalent in genres that attract more male readers. So genres like sci-fi and horror, also in fantasy. So I was considering publishing under my initials instead of publishing under my name, because I don't really want to publish under a pen name because I like my name. But I've decided that I'm going to publish under my full name for my current thriller series, and then probably try to change to my initials when I publish the sci-fi series. I'd set up alternate presences for myself for each of these pen names, but I will have to figure out exactly how to do that, because I've also heard that making your initials your pen name comes with a host of different challenges, like whether you add in the periods and whether you don't add in the periods, and whether or not you actually come up in searches. If you publish under your initials, please also let me know. I feel like I'm asking you guys so many questions in this video. I'm doing my best to learn as much as I can about the business side of publishing and what it really means to establish yourself as an indie author, because I don't know all the ins and outs of that yet. I'm trying to be a sponge, and soak up all of the knowledge I can. I've just been focused on finishing the books and getting them to a position where I'm as happy and proud of them as I can be. Which is also pretty difficult because it is really hard for me to stop editing. When it comes to writing, I'm a total perfectionist. I think a lot of this comes from just me wanting to make the book the best that I can make it, and something that you guys are actually going to enjoy. I also think part of it comes from my experience publishing in high school and reading some of those reviews that pointed out plot holes in my world building. I wasn't as experienced of a writer as I am now when I wrote that book, and I did make my fair share of mistakes. I think there's a part of myself that wants to prove to myself that I have grown as a writer since I published that book, which I know that I obviously have, but I think I just don't want there to be problems with the book that people can point out in reviews. And I know rationally that there will be problems with the book that people can point out in reviews. You just can't write a book that is beloved by everyone and that doesn't have any problems. Every book has problems, and not everybody is gonna like your book. And while I know that rationally, I still have this feeling where I just want to keep editing and editing and editing and making it as perfect as I can make it, even though I know it's never going to be perfect. So this is the struggle, and I've been working on it. And I've also been tweaking and editing the manuscript almost compulsively. I've set these deadlines for myself in order to force myself to let this book go. There comes a point where I just can't edit it anymore and it's not going to get any better. Or maybe it will, but maybe my energies are better focused elsewhere, writing the sequel and focusing on making that sequel better, rather than rewriting and rewriting the same book and never getting something out there. I want to focus on making every consecutive book that I publish better than the one I published before, but in order to do that, I need to start publishing and just bite the bullet. I just want to give some people a good experience reading the book. And if I do that through this book, I will be absolutely happy. So there you go, guys. I hope you all had a great holiday season and that you have a safe new year, and I will be back next week with more writing content on Monday. I also may or may not have a giveaway that I'm launching pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Just a little something to ring in the new year. Happy writing, guys.